what the Democrats will say is that President Trump seemed to accept the outlines of a deal, then backed away, just like he did a couple of weeks ago, just before Christmas, when the Senate Republicans and House Republicans were ready to take a deal on a punt until February, and the president backed away at the last minute. I really think this is about Democrats trying to stand up against the idea that there's going to be a wall at all. I think their goal is to puncture the fantasy that a wall will take place. And John Kelly facilitated their argument the other day in that exit interview from the White House with the Los Angeles Times, where he said, we gave up a wall a long time ago. The problem is that John Kelly may have given it up, and in reality, the administration may have given it up, but the president has not publicly given it up. And unless he does that, I don't think Democrats are going to be willing to pony up more money for him to pretend.
What of the point, Chuck, why don't you pick up here? What of the point that some years ago, maybe a dozen years ago or so, in another flurry of legislation, many Democrats supported the idea of a physical barrier to cover much of the southern border?
Oh, it's just a great, it's a great footnote, Tyler, but it really doesn't have much real bearing today. And I think for the markets, what's really going to be interesting is that we have this January 11th inflection point that's really kind of an important forcing mechanism, if you will, the electronic transfer of the next paycheck for a lot of these workers. And I think that as the media, really looks at that, it's going to be seen as a very important point. And if we get a nothing done at that point, I think there's going to be a perception that this could go on a great deal longer.
I'll tell you, if they miss those paychecks and people can't make their mortgage payments or their rent payments, you're going to see a lot of stories on a lot of outlets showing the pain and suffering of people who can't pay their bills.
And Tyler, that's where I think Chuck's point about how far do the Senate Republicans go along comes into play. Mitch McConnell does not like shutdowns. He has repeatedly urged his colleagues not to do it. He was ready to pass that legislation that would have avoided it before Christmas. I think the challenge is going to be, Mitch McConnell is saying, well, I'm not going to do anything if President Trump is not going to sign it. And that's a real restriction. But the pressure is going to be mounting on the government, on the executive branch, the president, because it's his government that is shut down. And I think Mitch McConnell is going to shove this process along the deeper we get into it.
I wonder, Chuck, what's going to happen as they both get together and try to strike a deal here, even in the next couple of hours. Is there something along the lines of what failed over the summer that could rear its head once again? In other words, the president gets his money for border security or for the wall, whether that's $5 billion or one, Chuck, and agrees to do something about the Dreamers in exchange.
I'm really skeptical about that, Kelly. And one reason is, if you look, the president is increasingly taking his muse, if you will, from the House Freedom Caucus, which is only about 15% of the House Republican Conference. But, they're the ones that really made it very difficult to repeal and replace Obamacare, which arguably cost Republicans the House. And they're the ones who basically told them to man up and help to force this shutdown just before Christmas. So I think they've been against this in the past, and I think that the president, not that they are driving his tune here, but I think that that's a bridge too far, that something much smaller and for a shorter period is the best we can hope for.
All right, John, I was sitting at home last night peacefully watching the Sugar Bowl game, and a story comes across written by now Senator Mitt Romney, very critical of the president. What do you two gentlemen think of that? Why did he do it? Why did he choose this evening to do it?
It's interesting, Tyler. Mitt Romney has vacillated over the years in his approach to Donald Trump, depending on where he was in his own political journey. But I think now, as he prepares to become a senator, at a time when the pressure and the dangers of facing the Trump administration are increasing, both politically because of Democratic resistance in the House and legally because of Robert Mueller getting closer and closer to the president, I think he is setting a marker down that there are limits, there are lines that we're going to draw. He didn't break with the president on policy, on taxes or regulation or anything like that, but he talked about the president as a man of inadequate character, subpar character. And I do think that is a warning shot for the president, because we are highly likely, I think, to be in a situation where the House of Representatives is going to at least explore the possibility of impeaching the president. Then it would go to the Republican-controlled Senate, where you need 20 Republicans to join with Democrats. Mitt Romney coming out even before he takes office and laying this marker down about the president's character, I think that's a sign that there will be some Republicans who might be willing to go along with the Democratic effort. Don't know if it'll be enough, but it's enough to worry the White House.
So react there, Chuck, if you would, to what John just said. Is it that kind of marker, or is it a flag indicating that Mr. Romney may be considering a challenge to the president in 2020?
I doubt the latter, but the timing, I totally agree with John. The timing is very important and very interesting. And, you know, it also coincides with the reality, as Paul Ryan, since his last day as Speaker, that the Republican Party and its, has kind of lost its mojo, and the holy grail of tax relief, tax reform did nothing for it. As a matter of fact, we had a 1,000-point move on the Dow a week ago. That tax bill got no credit for it. So the future, the heart and soul of the Republican Party going forward is up for grabs. And, this is something that wouldn't have happened a year ago. Nobody would have taken on President Trump. So he is very much more vulnerable. And he knows this, I think, and it's interesting, even his response to Romney was more gentle than it would have been several months ago.